People often ask me why I took up the study of jiu-jitsu and why I founded the Kodokan. The motivation that I had for beginning the study of jiu-jitsu is completely different from that which I relate today when explaining my reasons for creating judo. As a small boy, naturally, I studied many subjects: classical Chinese, calligraphy, English, and so on. Later, in 1873, I left home for the first time to enter a boarding school, Ikoei Gijuku, located in Karasumori-cho, Shiba, Tokyo. Even though the headmaster at Ikoei Gijuku was Dutch and his assistant German, all subjects were taught in the English language. Before entering this boarding school, I had learned to read elementary English at a private school run by Shuhei Mizukuri. Therefore, at Ikoei Gijuku, I was equal to my classmates in English ability. Among my fellow pupils, there were some who were physically weak, and as a result, they were often under the domination of the bigger, stronger boys. The weaker ones were forced to serve the stronger. Since I was one of the weakest, I was made to run errands at the behest of the strong. Even at my age today, I am still physically as robust as the next man. However, in those days, although not sickly, I was nevertheless quite feeble. In general scholarly pursuits, I was on a par with my classmates, but even so, I was often treated by them with contempt and despised. From an early age, my curiosity had been aroused when I first heard mention of jiu-jitsu, a method of fighting whereby one with little strength can overcome a physically more powerful adversary. I therefore seriously considered taking up training in this art. At the time, a former soldier named Nakai frequented our house. He sometimes bragged that he knew jiu-jitsu and showed me some kata techniques. This experience fired both my interest and imagination and gave me the idea of learning it from him. When I asked him to teach me, however, he refused, saying that it was not necessary to learn jiu-jitsu nowadays. In addition to our family home in Mikage, my father owned a second house in Maruyama-cho, Koishikawa-ku, Tokyo. The caretaker of this house was Ryuji Katagiri. He occasionally showed me some jiu-jitsu. I once asked him to give me regular instruction, but he also declined my request, saying that there was no point in learning it since it was no longer of any practical use. Another frequent visitor to our house was Genshiro Imai of Higo in Kyushu, who had learned the Kyushin style of jiu-jitsu. When I asked him to coach me, yet again I was refused. In fact, I could not find anyone who was willing to instruct me. As a result, I continued to suffer at the hands of bullies. In 1874, I transferred to the English language department of the Tokyo School of Foreign Languages. Unlike Ikoei Gijuku, I was not bullied much at my new school, chiefly because the classes were much smaller. However, after a time, I again realized that I needed to become stronger physically. In 1875, I entered Kaisei School. Although scholastic ability was esteemed among the boys at Kaisei, I soon came to realize that physical prowess was in fact respected there even more than at Ikoei Gijuku. I still kept up with my classmates in scholastic attainments, but as for my physical abilities, I was nowhere nearly as strong or as robust as they were. Thus, the urge in me to learn jiu-jitsu finally became overwhelming. At last, I approached my father and requested that he ask his colleagues, who had knowledge of jiu-jitsu, to teach me. He disagreed with my decision, however, saying that there was no need for me to learn it. I soon came to realize that I could not rely on my father for any help in this quest. I was 17 at the time and made up my mind that I had better learn to do things for myself, so I determined to find a jiu-jitsu master by my own efforts. I entered the literature department of Tokyo Imperial University in 1877. As I recall, it was about that time that I hit upon the idea of inquiring at bone setters' clinics, since it was said that many bone setters had been jiu-jitsu masters earlier in life, though I soon discovered that most of them had no knowledge of jiu-jitsu. Other bone setters whom I asked said that they used to teach jiu-jitsu, but gave up the practice years ago. One day I happened to be in Ningyo-cho, Nihonbashi, near the famous Benkei Bridge, when I spotted an osteopath's signboard. I approached the doorway. The name on the signboard read, Teinosuke Yagi, Bone Setter. Inside the building, I met a white-haired man who, despite advancing years, appeared to be strong and sturdy. I asked him if he gave instruction in jiu-jitsu. He stared at me and wished to know why I asked such a question. I told him who I was and that I longed to learn jiu-jitsu. He looked surprised at first and then smiled. He said that he was pleased to hear that I had an interest in the art and informed me that he had been awarded a license to teach jiu-jitsu from Master Mataemon Iso. He said that years ago he had been very active in teaching but had given up jiu-jitsu and these days relied solely on bone setting for his livelihood. He remarked that his 8-mat room was the only property he owned and that it was far too small for use as a jiu-jitsu dojo. After some thought, he said that his other fellow instructors had quit teaching a long time back, but that nearby, in what used to be Daikucho, there lived a jiu-jitsu colleague of his, Master Hachinosuke Fukuda. Yagi then offered to introduce me and suggested that I go to Mr. Fukuda's dojo. I left Yagi's clinic and went directly to the Fukuda dojo. It consisted of a 10-mat room with a stairway in one corner. The practice area was thus reduced to 9 mats. There was an adjacent room of 3 mats where Fukuda treated his patients. Consequently, the 9-mat dojo was also used as a waiting room for Fukuda's patients. It was there, in that cramped dojo, that I began my longed-for pursuit of the ancient secrets of jiu-jitsu.